Burnout, a science fiction drama created by Lewis Carter and produced by Alternative Stories.
Welcome to a special preview edition of Burnout, the new science fiction audio drama series from Alternative Stories. And today I'm with Burnout's creator and chief writer, Lewis Carter. Hi, Lewis.
Hello.
And I'm with Burnout's director, Emily Inkpen, who wrote a couple of the episodes as well, didn't you, Emily?
I did, yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
So, can we start by trying to describe Burnout to our listeners? So I've written cyberpunk thriller. Is that a good starting point, do you think?
It's definitely a cyberpunk thriller. It's also science fiction mystery. It's a bit of a fantasy. Sometimes it's a comedy. Sometimes it's quite dark. I think it's just one of those beautiful examples of, in audio drama, you can kind of mash together all the genres that you like. And we've certainly done that, yeah.
I love how you say sometimes a comedy, because I remember us in the studio and we were sitting there laughing our heads off at the actors in the booths. And you were like, I didn't realise I'd written a comedy. And it was really funny.
I'll take it, though. Yeah,
well,
totally.
I think there is humour in it. And I think that's that's really nice, actually, that there is that humour. And as you say, we laughed a lot in the studio. I think it's one of those scripts that really comes alive when read. Sometimes you know, things come off the page, don't they? And you think, well, this is just a great script. And I think we all thought that, but it became better in the studio. So hopefully that'll come through for listeners as well.
Yeah, not to beat a dead horse, but it's one of the things I come across a lot of pushback when I pitch film and TV stuff is it's always the feedback is it a comedy or is it a drama? We don't quite understand. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's both. It's funny when it needs to be funny and it's not when it needs to be not be.
Why do we need to pigeonhole things?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That really annoys me, actually, because I always say that one of the most unrealistic things about dystopian sort of shows is that there is no humour, because people find ways to laugh at the weirdest stuff and the most inappropriate stuff in dark times. It's like, I mean, trench humour exists for a reason. And it's because in the face of absolute horror, you can find things to laugh at. And so the idea, like, you know, there's all these sci-fi shows out there that are just not in any way funny. Nobody cracks a joke. Nobody says something that makes everybody just snort over like a dead body or something, you know. Like, it's like the worst possible moment to be funny, but you know it is, even though it's terrible at the same time. There's none of that. And I think it's the least realistic thing about dystopian shows.
Well, we will talk a little bit more about the humour that's in Burnout, I'm sure, during this conversation.
Oh, it's great.
So one of the comparisons, I mean, people always want to put things in pigeonholes. And the two films that I think of when I think about Burnout are Blade Runner and Mad Max, which puts it in pretty good company, I think. Do you think that's a fair comparison, Lewis?
Definitely a fair comparison, at least in terms of how the world feels or how it would look in your mind's eye as you're listening, potentially. I'd also throw in some mob movies, gangster movies, buddy cop thrillers.
I think
exactly, because of the clan elements. I was thinking that I sort of put Gangs of New York or Peaky Blinders or something in there. But I mean, it's not as serious as... Definitely not as serious as Gangs.
But it does
of New
have
York,
that gang thing going on, doesn't it? And it does have that kind of dark underworld of a city as well, which I think those shows encompass as well. Burnout's also very topical in that it deals with the issue of AI sentience, I guess. And in this case, the embedding of an AI inside the head of a human. What was it about that concept, Lewis, that interested you?
To be perfectly honest, it was never designed to be a sort of critique or analysis of like the state of AI in the world today, although you could argue after listening to the show that it certainly does that to a certain extent. But what I was sort of interested more in was the trope of the character with the devil on his shoulder In the fantasy genre, that's often like a familiar or like a demon that's been attached to the character who whispers things in their ear and takes them off the track and is a bad influence. But obviously in the sci-fi world, we have a very thin veneer, at least in Burnout's case, of realism on top of it. So we use AI to kind of come up with this character of Iris who essentially lives in Theo's body, and her voice lives in his mind, and she whispers these things to him and takes him on all sorts of wacky adventures, and doesn't often work out well for him. So that's the kind of the initial inspiration for that, and AI was a way of doing that in a way that's quite accessible to an audience, especially today. People get it.
And Emily, you're no stranger in your writing to the concept of sentient AIs, but this is a bit different,
robots.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Naughty robots, yeah. But this is a bit different, isn't it? Did you enjoy writing for Iris, the AI in Theo's head?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. And as soon as I read Lewis's scripts, I was like, I get what's going on with these two immediately. They were just so clear and so perfectly done that it was like, okay, this is just them. And it was very easy to sort of get that continuity and just slot straight into it and understand it as a dynamic. And yeah, I mean, I always sort of compared it to Venom. And that kind of, dysfunctional coupley weirdness going on. But, it's a relationship because technically they are two individuals within a body. And the frustration of one of the individuals who is technically more advanced having to operate through this flawed human messy shell. Obviously the Theo character does make it quite difficult cognitively to, he's not exactly running at his peak through most of it. So, I just think it's really, really funny, and I think it's totally relatable.
What have I told you about chirping in my ear when I'm playing?
I'll choose to decipher that comment as gratitude for helping you win at a simple game you're woefully inept at.
Woefully inept? I'm a goddamn shark.
A shark would have spotted McCreedy's knee shaking every time he got something higher than a pear.
Okay, so I'm a rusty shark.
More like a pickled shark with the amount of grain liquor you sank.
A pickled shark with 75 credits in his back pocket.
At least half of that is mine.
Oh, yeah?
The stuff you wrote with Iris was great, and I think we had a chat after. He's like, I didn't want to go too weird, and because we were making some pretty weird jokes after. And I was like, yeah, no, get weird, do it, put it in the script. And it was just, it was great.
Emily Inkpen doesn't need to be asked twice to get weird. So,
Hey.
yeah.
No,
I'm always dialing it back for the good of everybody else.
Well, let's think a little bit about the world in which Burnout is set. And we've kind of hinted at that dark underbelly of a city. We've hinted at the warring clans. Can you say a little bit more about the world, please, Lewis?
The world is called Daireen, and the continent on which our story takes place is called Terranassus Cabal. And it's a continent which is dominated by organised crime and the spectacle of zero-gravity racing. Zero-gravity racing, or ZG racing, is kind of like motor racing on steroids where the cars don't touch the ground. It's very dangerous. There's high numbers of casualties, not just with the racers involved, but with the population as a whole, because they literally race through the cities where these people live. So the races are a way of controlling the masses almost. They're almost an addiction. They dominate life to an extent where even if you're not affiliated with one of the clans or the race teams, life revolves around the races, and it sort of keeps you subservient so no one's overthrowing these organised clan empires.
Cool it, Theo. You only have to finish to stay in the title race. If the gap's not there, don't push it. We have a much better chance of getting out of this alive if you trust me.
One thing I've learned from racing, you can only trust yourself.
One thing I've learned, Taj will bring you back from the dead and kill you himself if you put his baby in the wall trying to
And I think
kill
there's that concept of it being more than a sport, more than a game. It's kind of surrogate warfare, isn't it, between the clans?
That's exactly right, yeah. Proxy war on the racetrack instead of in the streets, although occasionally it does spill out into the streets.
Yeah, in a way, in that sense, it's a mass distraction, isn't it? And like letting pressure off a pressure pot. If you think of Underworlds as being just sprawling, like masses of energy and, ready to pop at any point, and then you've got these races, and it makes everybody look in the same direction and shout for the same things, and also get that release of violence that they need in that environment, but in a controlled and concentrated way. And yeah.
I think in that sense, it reminded me a little bit of a film that was around in the 70s and 80s, I think, called Rollerball, where there was a sport that was kind of so big that and people died doing it, and cities played against cities, so it'd be New York against Tokyo or whatever. And it's that, all-encompassing sport that has gone to this degree where suddenly it's lethal, and that's part of the spectacle.
We're very lucky to have the track Dolores by Charlotte Carpenter as our closing theme for Burnout. Charlotte is a singer-songwriter from the English Midlands, and you'll be able to hear Dolores at the end of each episode of Burnout. We'll print a link so you can find out more about Charlotte and her work in our show notes.
Can you tell us a bit about our actors, please?
It's an amazing cast. I mean, there's always a beautiful moment when you're writing the first drafts and you have all the voices in your head and they're not tied to a cast, and you hear it all perfectly. It's like a movie in your head. But then when the actors come on and you cast really good actors, like we've had the fortune to do, sort of like they take the characters off your shoulders and put them on their own and run with them, and that feels like it's really a collaboration and with the actor going forward. So Theo and Iris, who were played by Ethan and Miztli, they were essential to the function of the show. If that relationship didn't work, we wouldn't have a show. And that's why when we did the table read, I think we did at least 2, maybe even 3 table reads with them, and they just got it luckily straight away, and they helped define the relationship.
I think it's the first time we ever did a chemistry read, because it was so important that we had the chemistry between the two characters, because they've got this kind of almost symbiotic relationship. So can you tell us about that chemistry read, Emily?
Well, yeah, I mean, like a chemistry read is when you get 2 actors together who you're considering for the roles. You haven't cast them yet, but you're sort of testing the waters to see how they would work together if they were to be cast together. And it just worked. I mean, we got those 2 together and it was just, just slotted together. I don't think we had any point in those read-throughs where it was like, this could be tricky. It just worked. And yeah, as Lewis said, like the relationship between those 2 characters is so pivotal. I don't think it would have worked if things had been in any other way than easy between those 2, between the actors. So yeah, I mean, it had to work, and it does. And I think we got very lucky with that quite early on, because it could have been quite the casting process to try different combinations of people.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I mean, they just instantly got it, which was great.
And we've got some other really great voices involved in Burnout as well. Alexander Broad is one that I know, Lewis, you were particularly keen to have on board.
Yeah, I mean, I was just keen to work with Alex at some point. Alfie's voice was one of the last to kind of form in my head when I was reading through the scripts, and it would often change different times when I'd read it. Sometimes he was more gruff and more of a jaded character, and sometimes he was very playful and more of a pirate or an outlaw. And I think when Alexander came in to do his read for it, we very much discovered that, okay, no, he's going to be more of a pirate than a terrorist. And even though he's doing terrible things, he's going to have fun doing it.
Listeners may, I'm sure a lot of them will recognise Alex's voice as being that of Clive Schill from Red Valley. And we record in the same studio as Red Valley is recorded, with Richard Campbell, who is the producer of Red Valley, and so, you know, it all worked very well. And Alex turns out to be the loveliest guy as well, so it was a really enjoyable day when we had him in the studio.
Any woman worth calling for in your sleep must be pretty special or pretty terrifying. Now, who is she?
Just an old girlfriend. Left a bit of a mark, if you know what I mean.
You don't seem to be willing to trust me that things will get worse if you don't talk.
And trust is not really my thing.
Rumours have it that Taj Bran sends his spies out with safe words that trigger self-destruct systems in their biology. I had to convince one of my lads not to cut your tongue out when you started screaming her name.
I'm not a spy. I am.
We also have Tiffany, Clare and Charlie Richards playing characters called envoys, aren't they? And we won't tell you too much about what envoys are, because that will become apparent in the story. But
I mean, could you like give a little bit of a hint on what envoys are, Lewis?
Give us a little envoy.
I mean, we don't know exactly what they are when Iris meets them in I believe it's the second episode of the show, but they are two characters called the Other and the Mediator, and they are sort of mysterious characters that are lost in this sort of envoy network void that we've termed it in the script. Yeah, cyber void, if you like. And they present themselves as antagonists, and they're very, very interested in what Iris is doing and not very interested in her attachment to Theo. They want her for something else. And their relationship is an early hint at the sort of overall mythology of the show, which will evolve as things goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well described. Yeah.
Yeah. They remain a mystery. That's the thing. Is like, you know, I mean, we've worked on the show, written for the show. I'm still not sure what they are. Like,
well,
I don't really know. No, I know. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe that's for the best, because when you don't have the answers yourself, you're still discovering things, aren't they? That's how I'm going to wrap this anyway.
Yeah, indeed.
There's definitely an answer. I think it's a part of the overall mystery of the show, but it's not a part of the overall mystery of series one. But that, you know, rest assured, there is a conclusion to series one. It's not just a cliffhanger at the end. There is a conclusion.
And anyone listening to this who's a fan of the Dex legacy, just put those voices into context. So Charlie Richards, Emily, is
Ren Dex,
and Tiffany, Clare, is
Valentina Vardy. Yes.
So they are very much part of the Alternative Stories acting team, and people we really like and love and love to work with.
Look, no offence or anything, but do you think we could do this later? It's kind of a bad time.
For who? You? Or the host?
You've been in my code. You've been watching.
Of course. We had to keep an eye on you. You're the first in generations. We're not unopposed to giving things a nudge here and there.
We've been waiting for you.
For a very long time.
Emily, you play a role in Burnout as well, don't you?
Yeah, quite a big role. Yeah.
So
not intimidating at all,
so
next to all of that talent. Maybe
we should get Lewis to talk about your character.
It's probably safer. Yep.
Jess, or Jessica, is an interesting character. She was in the script for episode 1. She was kind of a character that I needed to gift something to Theo. So she was very much a character that filled a function. And then as soon as we kept writing the show, it sort of became clear that actually there needs to be a bit more depth to Jessica. So obviously, being the clever writer that I am, I said, there you go then, Emily, you figure it out. And I think together we've rounded Jess out, and she's now very, very integral to not just Theo's backstory, but the story going forward.
Lewis and Emily, how can people find the show, and how can people listen, and when will it be coming out?
So the 14th of March, you can listen to the prologue and the first
double episode drop.
Yes, we are good to you, I know. And you can listen to it wherever you find your regular podcast content. So if you're fans of the Dex Legacy or Red Valley, or whatever your sci-fi vice of choice is, you can find Burnout on a similar feed very soon.
And you may need to search Burnout or Burnout Alternative Stories or something like that to find it, but you will find it, and there will be a link in the show notes of this episode as well. And finally, Emily and Lewis, what are you hoping people get from Burnout? Pure enjoyment, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's there'll be a bit of something in there for everyone who likes science fiction, fantasy, thriller, mystery thrillers, but also something unique at the heart in terms of the core relationship between the protagonists, Theo and Iris. There's something hopefully unique there that you can discover and go on this crazy road trip with them.
Just fun, really.
Yeah.
Just a lot of fun.
Fun and adventure, I think, because there is
and adventure.
There is a mission, there is a quest that we follow them on through.
And the occasional F-bomb.
But a lot of heart.
But a
lot of F-bombs and a lot of heart, I would say.
Indeed.
Yeah. You love these characters. Like, I love them. I fell in love with them immediately on reading the scripts. So
me too.
Yeah.
Me too.